the Brexit vote, taking Britain out of the European Union, was to a very large extent precipitated by anti-migration sentiments. We can see the same effect in France, Germany, Italy, to a lesser extent Spain, and Holland and so on. Populist parties taking advantage of people's fears about immigration and making the problem worse. And of course, when we look at the problem, there isn't a problem. There's a failure to distinguish between different types of migration. Europe is aging and will soon be shrinking and needs manpower. It needs young families. It needs to reverse the falling birth rate because without more people, it will not have the tax incomes and the labor force to sustain its economic progress. The problem with populists is not that they've taken advantage. They are popular. And they're popular because people believe that migration pushes down their standard of living instead of being, in fact, a safety net that in the longer term, the regions of Europe that seem to be most opposed to immigration are rural areas where there is none. And it's because immigration has become a sort of a threat, a cloud over people's heads. The less they know about immigration, the more they're suspicious of it and reject. Centrist politicians throughout Europe have not had the political courage to confront the argument about immigration. 12 years ago, Felipe González, Spanish Prime Minister, 2050, Europe needs 100 million immigrants. Immigration and fears of immigration played a very important part. 2/3 of British opinion now believes it was a mistake.
In 2015, when a very large number of refugees arrived in Europe, this coincided with a stark increase in support for far-right parties in several European countries. So we've seen that in Germany with the rise of the Alternative for Germany. We've seen that with the Sweden Democrats' support for the Freedom Party, the Austrian far-right party, increased. It's macro level factors. It's a general fear that the population has, that the state doesn't have the control of who comes into the country, or a general fear about the effect it will have on public finances. That this is also partly a driver of kind of the shift towards far-right parties in many European countries that we've seen in the last 10 years. I don't see a reverse shift. I think partly is because the far right that managed to get very strong in the wake of refugee migration also managed to capitalize on other topics, being it COVID, being it the war of Russia against Ukraine. And unless they're really willing to boldly engage in pragmatic migration and integration policy, actually have policies that try to make the country unattractive, like employment bans for refugees for quite a long time. For integration of these migrants, which means they will rely on welfare benefits for much longer. This in turn might feed into kind of support for far-right parties.